In this video, we're doing a deep dive into the world of cold wallets, and straight up, cold wallets are one of the most confusing things you can buy in crypto. For example, what's the difference between a $49 Tangent wallet, a $99 Ledger wallet, and a $398 Ngrave wallet? Also, how can one cold wallet brand claim to be more secure than the other when they do the exact same thing? Well, over the last 6 years, I've tested all the different styles and brands of cold wallets in order to create this cold wallet hierarchy that explains the security, usability, and price differences between the wallets available today. And by the end of this video, I have 3 promises to deliver on. Not only will I give you access to my full wallet comparison guide that I made specifically for this video after analyzing 44 different hardware wallets, but you'll also understand what features actually make a wallet secure in the real world according to actual data. Second, you'll understand why cold wallet prices vary so much from one wallet to the next, and whether more expensive wallets are actually more secure. And third, using that information, you'll be able to choose the best cold wallet for your situation so you can protect your crypto long term with a wallet you'll actually enjoy using. Because a wallet you end up buying today ultimately determines if your crypto will be protected in the long run. In fact, when I first bought crypto and started researching which cold wallet to get, there were 2 major mistakes I made. First, I was completely focused on finding the wallet that claimed to have the best security, but I never actually looked at the data behind those claims. For example, one of my biggest takeaways from this video is you should stop buying cold wallets based solely on their security marketing, because there is very little evidence suggesting that the terms these wallet manufacturers use actually translate into real-world security. The second mistake I made is I never compared the user experience of different wallets side by side, which is kind of silly because a user experience plays a huge role in choosing the most secure wallet. After all, if you get a wallet that's confusing or complicated to use, you're more likely to make a mistake that could lead to you losing your crypto. Now, for this deep dive, I gathered data from 44 different cold wallets across all the different brands to ultimately find out what makes a cold wallet secure and what can lead to vulnerabilities. So let's start there. What does the data say? Let's start with the hardware. What's actually in these wallets that makes storing the keys to your crypto more secure than using something like your phone or computer? The main component is a secure element chip. This chip is responsible for most of the cryptographic processes, including generating and storing your private keys, along with signing crypto transactions. These are similar to the types of chips used in bank cards and electronic passports to protect sensitive data. But for this section, I wanted to specifically look at the wallets I previously mentioned, Tangent, Ledger Nano X, and Ngrave 0, to find out 1, if they use a secure element chip, and 2, if they all offer the same level of security. To find out, I researched the exact chips used in each one of these wallets. Tangent uses a Samsung S3D350A secure element chip. The Ledger Nano X uses an ST33J2M0 chip from STMicroelectronics, and the Ngrave 0 also uses a chip from STMicroelectronics, the STS AFE A100. So each one of these wallets use a secure element chip, but does each chip provide the same level of security? Well, one place we can look for this answer is a security ranking system used throughout cybersecurity that gives us a standardized way to evaluate security claims. It's called the Evaluation Assurance Level, or EAL for short. The EAL scale ranges from 1 to 7, with 1 being the lowest level of assurance and 7 being the highest. So 7 is basically the most secure. Many cybersecurity products, including secure element chips, receive an EAL certification through an international framework called Common Criteria. This certification evaluates things like the chip's design, testing, and resistance to different types of attacks. Now, it's important to point out that an EAL rating doesn't tell us everything we need to know about a chip security, but it does give us a good starting point when comparing the different secure element chips in each hardware wallet. So let's look at the EAL rating for the chips in each one of these wallets. Tangent received an EAL 6+ rating, meaning it is approved for high security environments that require highly structured design and extensive testing. The Ledger Nano X and its STMicroelectronics chip achieved an EAL 5 rating, which requires extensive vulnerability analysis and semi-formal design verification, and the Ngrave 0 chip also received an EAL 5 rating. So does that mean the EAL 5 chip used in the Ledger Nano X and Ngrave 0 is less secure than the EAL 6 chip used in Tangent? Not according to the data that I gathered. The secure element chip is only one part of a wallet's overall security architecture. In fact, when comparing the 44 different cold wallets and all the chips that they used, The results are as followed. 45% of wallets use an EAL6 rated secure element, 27% use an EAL5 rated secure element, and 27% either use a chip with no EAL rating or they didn't use a secure element chip at all. But next I wanted to find out whether a higher EAL rating translated into better real-world security. To do that, I looked at how many wallets had experienced a publicly disclosed vulnerability related specifically to the secure element chip or lack of. Out of the 44 cold wallets I analyzed, 5 of them experienced a chip-related vulnerability. Now, when I say vulnerability, that doesn't mean the wallet isn't secure or that it was actually compromised and people lost crypto as a result. It means there was a weakness found in the chip that could potentially lead to some kind of exploit. And as you'll see in a second, some of them were exploited. The first example is the Trezor Model 1. This was the first hardware wallet ever created, and it didn't use a secure element chip at all. As a result, security researchers demonstrated that they could extract wallet keys if they had physical access to the device and a strong passphrase wasn't being used. The next wallet was the Trezor Model T. Because it shared a similar architecture with the Model 1, it was vulnerable to the same type of attack. The third wallet was KeepKey, and since it was also heavily based on the original Trezor design and also lacked a secure element chip, it inherited a similar vulnerability. The fourth wallet, though, was the Coldcard MK2. In this case, researchers were able to attack the chip and brute force the pin. Once the correct pin was recovered, they were able to gain access to the wallet. This issue was later fixed in the newer Coldcard MK3 model though. The fifth example occurred much more recently in the Trezor Safe 7. However, this vulnerability is more nuanced and did not result in the compromise of users' keys, PIN, or the wallet backup, in part because the Safe 7 actually uses 2 different secure chips for this exact reason. Based on this data, I think the strongest conclusion is that not having a secure element chip is less secure when it comes to physical attacks. So having a secure element chip is a crucial part of a wallet's physical security. However, I couldn't find any meaningful real-world evidence showing that an EAL6 rated chip is more secure than an EAL5 rated chip in actual use when it comes to hardware wallets. But another highly debated subject when it comes to cold wallet security is open source versus closed source code. Open source means the code used by the wallet, which basically defines how the wallet works, is publicly available for anyone to review and verify. Closed source software, on the other hand, is kept private to the company and only they know what's going on with the code. A lot of people automatically assume that open source code is instantly more secure because anyone can review the code. But open source code can also result in vulnerabilities. The good thing about open source code is it eliminates the need to have to trust the wallet manufacturer because you can actually verify everything they say is true. A common saying in crypto is don't trust, verify. That said, good guys aren't the only ones who can review open source code. Bad guys have the same right. So if a bad actor finds a vulnerability and exploits it before the good guy finds it, they could potentially use that to affect the users in a negative way. On the flip side, closed source code prevents both the good and the bad guys from being able to find vulnerabilities in the code. So the likelihood that a bad actor will exploit any vulnerabilities when it comes to closed source code is a lot less likely. But with closed source code, you have to put your trust in the wallet manufacturer and trust that they don't have any backdoors and that everything they say is true. That said, one more thing worth considering, regardless of if a wallet is open or closed source, is the security audit. Any reputable cold wallet company is going to spend the money to pay for third-party security audits, and these auditors will basically go through the wallet software and hardware and try to find any vulnerabilities and basically try to hack the wallet. Any vulnerabilities these auditors find are directly reported to the wallet manufacturer so that they can take the appropriate measures to either fix the vulnerabilities or decide if it's even worth fixing. Of course, I wanted to look at what the data said about how open and closed source code affects the security of cold wallets. Out of the 44 wallets I looked at, 29% of them are open source, 52% of them are mixed or use both open and closed source components, and 18% are completely closed source. That said, I couldn't find a single major vulnerability that was directly caused by a wallet being open source, closed source, or a mix of both. From this data, we can conclude that open source code is primarily a transparency feature that might not have a direct benefit in actual real-world use, at least not that has been proven, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider the pros and cons of both open, closed, and mixed source code. Now, before we get into why wallets are priced differently and whether the more expensive ones are actually more secure, I want to look at two security terms that I often see used in cold wallet marketing that can make choosing a secure wallet even more difficult. The first term I want to cover is air-gapped wallet. Air-gapped wallets are often thought to be more secure than non-air-gapped wallets, but I'm not convinced. An air-gapped wallet is simply a cold wallet that has no direct connection to another device. So rather than using USB-C, Bluetooth, or NFC, it utilizes QR codes or maybe micro SD cards to complete transactions. Some popular examples of air-gapped wallets include the Keystone 3 Pro, the OneKey Pro, and the Engrave Zero. But what does the data actually say about air-gapped wallets, and are they actually more secure? Well, there's one study that we can look at that was done by Shift Crypto, who's the creator of the Bitbox hardware wallets. Their study concluded that there is no evidence that air-gapped wallets are inherently more secure than non-air-gapped wallets. In fact, they argue that air-gapped wallets simply replace one set of risks with another. For example, a USB connection could theoretically introduce attack vectors through the connection itself, but air-gapped wallets rely on QR codes and micro SD cards, which introduce their own attack surfaces. They also require more steps to complete a transaction, which adds complexity and can increase the chances of user error. So while air-gapped wallets are often marketed as being a more secure wallet, I don't think crypto investors should instantly assume that they're more secure. It's simply a different approach to using a hardware wallet. And the last term I want to look at is Bitcoin-only wallets. As the name suggests, a Bitcoin-only wallet is simply a wallet that only supports managing and storing the keys for your Bitcoin, whereas most other wallets allow you to manage and store keys for thousands of other cryptocurrencies. The argument for why Bitcoin-only wallets are more secure than multi-coin wallets is that because it only supports one cryptocurrency, the wallet has less code, and less code potentially equals a smaller attack surface, which in theory could reduce the likelihood of bugs and vulnerabilities. Now, while that sounds great when it comes to marketing, I couldn't find any real-world evidence that proves Bitcoin-only wallets are more secure than non-Bitcoin-only wallets. In fact, one of the wallets I mentioned earlier, the Coldcard MK2, is a Bitcoin-only wallet, and as we now know, that vulnerability was the result of its hardware. And when looking at vulnerabilities discussed earlier, none of those vulnerabilities were the result of a wallet supporting too many cryptocurrencies. And that's not to say that Bitcoin-only wallets aren't also secure, there's just no data proving that Bitcoin-only wallets are automatically more secure than a wallet that supports multiple cryptocurrencies. Okay, aside from everything we just covered, most hardware wallets available today share many of the same security features. For example, almost every hardware wallet I know of is protected by either a PIN or some kind of password, and they support using the passphrase or hidden wallet feature, which are really the core security features of every hardware wallet. So taking all of that into consideration, and after looking at the data, I think it's safe to conclude that most wallets that are available to buy today that use a secure element chip are going to protect your crypto just fine. Now, before we look at why some cold wallets cost significantly more than others, and if that actually translates to better security in any way, we need to look at something that's often overlooked, which is a wallet's ecosystem, or in more simple terms, the features and experience that comes with the wallet. So after analyzing the 44 different cold wallets for this video and testing more than 35 of them myself, I realized something that you'd probably only notice after testing 35 different cold wallets, and that is people are trying to answer the wrong question. The number one question I get asked is which cold wallet is most secure. But after looking at all this data, it's clear to me that that is not the most important question. What really separates these wallets isn't security, it's the problems they're trying to solve. For example, some wallets are designed to maximize convenience and make self-custody as simple as possible. Others are designed to maximize transparency through open source code, and some focus entirely on securing and managing Bitcoin. Notice how each of these wallets is built for a different type of person: the beginner, the privacy-focused user, and the Bitcoin maxi. But after looking at all this data, it's clear to me that that is not the most important question. And once you understand that, you realize there isn't one wallet that's best for everyone. There is one wallet that is best for a specific person with specific preferences and specific goals. In other words, these wallets aren't competing on security almost at all. They're competing on the experience they provide the user and the problems they solve. And all of this ultimately plays a massive role in which wallet you end up going with, which we're going to get to in a bit. But first, we need to get to the bottom of this pricing dilemma. If most all of these cold wallets share many of these same security features, and statistically they are equally secure in the real world, then why is it that a wallet like Tangem or the Ledger Nano X is significantly cheaper than something like the Ngrave Zero? Well, from what I could gather, it takes a lot of money to start a hardware wallet company and ship the first wallets to customers. For example, Ngrave initially raised $450,000 just to deliver their first 1,200 wallets to customers, and later went on to raise an additional $6 million to ramp up production. And this is just one example of many, but it does support my assumption that one of the biggest pricing factors is the initial product design and continued manufacturing costs. Or let's take this example. When comparing a wallet like Tangem, which uses a relatively standard card design with Tangem's firmware loaded onto a chip and then is manufactured at scale, versus something like the Ngrave Zero, which was designed from the ground up and contains significantly more components and is produced in much smaller quantities, it's easier to understand why one costs substantially more than the other. Aside from that though, there are ongoing costs for things like marketing, logistics, customer support, security audits, and continued firmware updates that vary by one wallet manufacturer to another. But I would argue that all the wallet brands share a lot of those same costs, which is why I believe the initial design and manufacturing remains the greatest reason for the price difference between all these wallets. So just because a wallet costs more does not mean you are getting a more secure wallet. There's also no data showing that a $400 wallet like Ngrave is more secure than a $50 wallet like Tangem. So what you're actually paying for is the design and then maybe some additional convenience features like wireless charging or a massive touchscreen. But only you can decide if that's actually worth the extra money to you. Okay, let's land this plane. I want to show you how I use all this data to choose the best cold wallet for me and where I see people make the biggest mistake. Let's start with the mistake. I have literally watched people comment on my channel for months comparing the most minute security features of every cold wallet without actually taking any action or getting a wallet. They get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase while their crypto sits unsecure. But the one thing they don't think to look at is how enjoyable the wallet actually is to use and how simple it is to use and doesn't match their experience level. Because you could buy the most secure cold wallet in the world, but if you don't feel confident using it, or it's too complicated, you can make a mistake and lose all of your crypto. So rather than asking which wallet is more secure, the better question is which wallet is secure, but which one will I also enjoy using for the next 5 years? And one simple way you can compare all the different wallets, since you probably don't own over 35 of them like I do, is just watch YouTube reviews and user guides of the ones you're considering buying. But before you even get to that point, you can eliminate a lot of the wallets by checking what I call my 2 deal breakers. Deal breaker number 1 is coin support. If the wallet doesn't support the cryptocurrencies you plan to secure with it, then you literally can't use that wallet. So you can cross that one off your list. Deal breaker number 2 is device compatibility. Some wallets only work with your mobile phone, some only work with your computer, and some wallets will indeed work with both, but only you can decide what device you have at home that will also work with the hardware wallet. And to find the coin support and supported devices, just look on the wallet's website and you'll find that information. Now, if you want to go and compare 30 of the most popular cold wallets to ultimately decide which one is best for you, make sure to check out this video next. It's the largest cold wallet review video I've ever done. I'll see you over there. God bless and peace out.